Hey friends, welcome back. Today I'm going to share some information about what it's like to sell a property right now in this market. It is May of 2026. It's a strange market for sellers. And I'm also going to share some information about what you can do as a homeowner who is trying to sell their property to help get your property sold quicker. If this is your first time seeing me, my name is Sarah. I've been selling properties in San Diego for 16 years. I would love to help anybody that you know who is looking to buy or sell a property in San Diego. Make sure that you check out my links, especially if you're a real estate agent. There are a lot of cool resources and tools and templates there. Subscribe, and there's nothing else that I have to say other than let's get started. Right now, across the board, it is a buyer's market. There may be some specific neighborhoods, specific cities that are seeing different things, or even specific homes. I just set a record sales price for one of my listings, a highest price in 4 years in the community. But that's a very specific home that took a lot of painting and remodeling, well, a little bit of remodeling, staging, all of that. Across the board, the reality is a lot of properties are on the market for a lot longer than they were last year. There are a lot of price reductions, and I'm also seeing quite a few people who have no equity, and some of them are still choosing to sell. Now, why would somebody have no equity in this market? Well, it could be because they've refinanced a bunch of times. Typically, it is going to be like they bought the property just a couple of years ago. Sometimes a couple of years is not enough to build equity more so than you need in order to pay all of the closing costs. Let's say you're paying 2 agents, you're paying escrow, title, etc. Sometimes 2 years just isn't enough to build up that equity. That's an example. And a lot of times it is VA. So let's say you put no money down, you're starting from a position of no equity or even negative equity if you roll the closing costs into the loan. So that is some of what we are seeing on the seller side. Some people are doing price reduction after price reduction. Some people are finding that nobody is scheduling an appointment, and it can be rough for sellers because there are just a lot more people that want to sell their properties right now than there are buyers who want to buy those properties right now. So what can you do if you are a home seller in this market and you are either nervous because you're about to list, or you have found that your property is sitting on the market and you're not getting any offers? What can you do? The first thing I always have to say is I'm going to share some unique strategies, and that's cool, but no amount of marketing or creative financing strategies or any of that will overcome the wrong price. So, in other words, if the true value of your home is $1 million and you list it at 1.5, but you have the best video on social media, and you have tons of ads throughout the neighborhood, and you offer seller financing even, you are honestly probably going to get 0 offers. And if you do get offers, they're going to be lowballs because the market will always correct itself. And if you overprice a property, typically no one will come in the door. And if they do, they're going to offer you a lower price. So just keep that in mind. It is imperative in this market that you price your home correctly. Sometimes it's according to the comps, but sometimes it's not just about that. You might even have to be more competitive. And I know that that's disappointing. Talk to your real estate agent, get their strategy, of course, but that is the reality of the market. Okay, so let's say that you have priced your home correctly and you're on the multiple listing service, and therefore you're on all of these other real estate websites. It's getting syndicated everywhere. Your home has tons of exposure. What else can you do to make buyers excited about choosing your home? So there are a couple of thoughts on creative financing strategies. There, we can kind of break that into 2 categories: seller financing and then loan assumptions. So let's talk about loan assumptions first. You have to find out from your lender if your loan is even assumable or not. A lot of them are not. Let's say you have a VA loan and you find out, okay, cool, somebody could assume this. Understand that there are still risks for you on the seller side, especially if you are having somebody who is not a veteran assume that loan. So really do your research prior to accepting an assumable loan. Also, having somebody assume your loan is going to take months, and it's not going to be a fun or an easy process. So a lot of people end up not having somebody assume their loan, but could you market that as an option? Yeah, you could. If you have a 2.75 interest rate and somebody today is looking at, let's just say 6.5, and they're like, wow, of course the buyer needs to consider the difference in the value and what you owe because they're not going to be able to come in with nothing. But you can market it, and that can kind of get people excited and talking to their agent and finding more information and maybe scheduling a showing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to accept an offer where the buyer is asking to assume your loan. I wouldn't market it if you're absolutely not willing to consider it, but for the right terms, would you maybe consider it? Okay, cool. Throw it in your marketing. The main creative financing strategy that I would add for you to consider maybe is seller financing. We see it a lot in buyers markets, especially when it comes to rural properties and properties that are owned free and clear. And with seller financing, essentially you would become the bank. So instead of you getting a lump sum, right? You sell your property and you get all that money minus your cost. You're getting a down payment, but then you're not getting that lump sum. You're getting monthly payments. Okay. But you're still selling your property. So it works a little differently. Does not really work for people who don't own their house free and clear, who still have a loan. And of course, there is a downside. What if you need all that cash and you want all that cash? There are, of course, companies that will buy that note after the fact, but they will offer you a big old discount. So it's something to consider. Sometimes, again, just like with the assumable loan, if it's something that you might consider and it could work for your property, you could advertise that you might be open to it, because one thing to consider with seller financing is everything's negotiable. That interest rate that buyer is going to pay you is negotiable. So personally, I would not do it as a seller unless the interest rate that I was getting was a lot higher than what the banks are getting currently. Those are some financing strategies. Let's talk about the presentation of the home. This is a really, really big one. Even if you have priced the property right, I have found that in this market, buyers are really, really picky. They are meticulous. They know what they want. And honestly, who can blame them? Because they're finding that their mortgage is going to be $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. So they don't really want to come into a home that is, let's say it's not a very old home, but you decided to paint the walls dark blue here and dark purple there and green there. Okay, they don't want to deal with that. And there was a different market where they would absolutely be willing to deal with that and they wouldn't care. And you and I might say, well, it's not a big deal. It's a house. I want the house. I can paint it myself. I can have it painted, whatever. A lot of buyers do not have that mindset in this market. So even if you have a beautiful house, but you have a few deterrents here and there, it's going to hinder you. You have to remove all of those deterrents as possible, meaning a light neutral paint. Get rid of the bright colors. Do you need a new front door? Are there small remodeling projects? I'm not saying remodel your entire house. Is there no landscaping in the back? Can you do some inexpensive landscaping and make it look beautiful? Those things are actually going to make a really big difference in this market, in my opinion. And lastly, let's talk a little bit about marketing. My question for you is, do you have any? The reality is, to be fair, having your property on the MLS does get your property on all of the other real estate websites. So assuming that you have really good professional photography, you are getting a good level of exposure for that listing. And hopefully your real estate agent is updating you at least once a month. Sorry. At least once a week is actually what I meant to say. Hopefully your real estate agent is updating you at least once a week with statistics to be able to say, this is how many people viewed the property online, and this is how many people saved the property online, and all of that kind of stuff, because you need that information. It's really helpful. But beyond just having the property on the multiple listing service, again, pricing is most important, but sometimes having some really good marketing can help. It certainly won't hurt. So this might be a conversation that you want to have with your real estate agent, or if you're interviewing agents, what are they going to do? Are they paying for a boost on Zillow so it's coming up higher than other listings in the area? Do they have a professional video, and is it on all of the different websites? Are they doing a video on YouTube or on all the other social media platforms? Open houses, they can be really beneficial, I think, especially in the beginning. Now, if you have been on the market for 150 days, and no offense, you're one of those sellers that is saying to your agent, well, we just need to do an open house every weekend until it sells. I have news for you. It's not the lack of open houses, because as long as somebody can make an appointment and see the property, if they want the property, they will buy the property. The open house serves not as the only way for people to find the property and the only way for people to access it, but in the beginning, the open house is really helpful because you want to try to get everybody in around the same time. And that psychological, that mindset thing of like, oh, this is a hot property. This one's actually going to go fast. I need to make a really good offer. That doesn't really work for you very well if you haven't just reduced the price. Let's say it's the same price and you've been on the market for a really long time. That doesn't work for you anymore. I don't have a problem with you wanting an open house once you have let's say you have a significant price reduction, but just know that doing continually open house after open house after open house isn't actually going to change anything because it's already on the market and buyers are already seeing it. They're just telling you that the price is wrong. Hopefully you learned something new today. Maybe there's a strategy that you need to talk to your real estate agent about. If you need a referral for a real estate agent who's not in San Diego, let me know. If you need a real estate agent who's in San Diego, I would be happy to help. And as always, I have 2 requests for you. Number 1, if you have a real estate topic that you'd love to learn more about, please let me know in the comments. And number 2, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a great day.